I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Arab American Association of Engineers and Architects for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to live my life purpose. As you might know, and if you don't know, my life purpose is I aspire to a creative society whose members live authentically in an environment which encourages kindness. And being here today, I consider being on purpose to help you in being creative, which the world needs more than ever before.
Help you with that too, as the world really needs more creativity than ever before. Just giving you some background here, you might have heard this debate of whether we will go back to normal post-COVID or we will embrace new normal. So I believe we will be moving to a new normal post-COVID, and in the last decade that we lived, we witnessed a dynamic and fast changes in all aspects of life, including socially with the advancements of social media, technically with the advancements of cloud computing and big data, IoT, and so on. And from an economic aspect also, we've seen major advancements in electronic payment, e-commerce, and so on. And the changes I mentioned have been going at a fast pace for the last 10 years to a point where we are almost, as society is ready to embrace complete digital transformation and a complete digital world. So we will start seeing robots in the workplace, we will start seeing them in restaurants, hospitals, and if we haven't already seen that. And also another example of new advancements include self-driving cars, trucks, Internet of Things, IoT, machine learning, and so on. So the digital transformation is expected to continue making impact on all our societies, economic and all aspects of our life. Also, the new norm post-COVID-19 era is going to be different as well. So therefore, our agenda for today, we will give you some background and talking about the skills needed in the workplace and what employers look for in employees. So starting with soft skills, and when we talk about soft skills, we're talking about the skills which we all need to succeed regardless of the type of work we do, whether we are employed or not, whether we are entrepreneurs or job seekers. I hope with the expectation, everybody, that we'll be talking about soft skills, because hard skills are the core skills that any profession would need. So engineers, there are certain core skills that we will not be talking about. Obviously, our focus will be on soft skills, and which I think everybody, anyone who's here is expected to see it useful, as these are considered to be core skills, considered to be important skills in the coming decade that we are in. So you happen to be at the right place at the right time, because these skills, unfortunately, are not being taught as core curricula in universities. Neither we teach them to our children, nor we learn them at our workshop houses. So I would like to start with a definition here. There are a couple of formulas. I know I'm talking to engineers here, and I know that engineers like formulas. So I came up with a couple of formulas that I would like to share. So maybe you can take some a photo here or a screenshot, because we will be referencing these formulas throughout the presentation. What I want to introduce here is the formula of competency. And So competency is how fit we are. So this is how maybe you should look at it by giving you this metaphor. The metaphor is our body. So if we want to make our body fit, so maybe we go to a personal trainer in the gym, and he will tell us to focus on certain exercises to grow certain muscles in our body. And if we are disciplined enough, we will be fit. So again, the metaphor is having a competent body, and the skill is metaphorically is the muscle that we want to build, and the discipline is the attitude. So the competency to have a fit body is having these muscles and having the discipline. And so this is a definition which I'm using here to clarify any potential cross-referencing of the word competency going forward. Another formula that I'm pleased to share with you here is success. And success formula is who and what. Who we are, or who you are as a person, and what you want. So another formula that I'd like to share, and maybe we'll reference this formula going forward. So bearing in mind what competency is that we talked about, let us explore the skills needed now and in the next decade. People with emotional intelligence, just to share with you this interesting statistics here, people with emotional intelligence outperform people with high rates of mental intelligence, which is IQ, by 70%. So high IQ is not necessarily tied to high success in life. So what is associated with success in life then? Maybe someone would ask. So according to Carnegie research, it has proven that for success in material gain, like financial gains, or managing the resources or financial resources, 85% of the time of success depends on emotional or what we call human skills versus 15% advancements versus 15% of analytical skills. So this is the ratio that to highlight the importance of emotional intelligence. So what are emotional intelligence then? Emotional intelligence are built on these 4 pillars.
Recording in progress.
4 pillars. Emotional intelligence includes self-awareness. So self-awareness is knowing who you are, and we'll be talking more about self-awareness, managing emotions, negotiation, and empathy. In self-awareness, just to give you a brief, is knowing more about yourself. If you remember the formula that we talked about, success is knowing who you are and what you want. So self-awareness is being aware about who you are as a person, what you want in life as purpose. Managing emotions is like, just to give you an example, if you go to a market and you want to buy a shirt, and you like 2 shirts when you went shopping. So the decision would be to buy the shirt that you wanted to buy, or buying the 2 shirts that you like. People with more emotional management, they will be able to make the decision to buy the 1 shirt. And there is a very famous and popular research study that was done in the 60s. It's called the marshmallow study, where they observed the behavior of 5-year-old kids at Stanford University, asking them to take 1 marshmallow. However, if they waited in the room for 5 minutes, they would take more. And they monitored their behavior. Some of them took 1, some of them waited, some of them were moving around, and they couldn't really resist and took extra marshmallow. And they watched these people, these kids growing up, and they found that they were able to, at high schools, getting better grades and SAT, and therefore going to better universities, and later on attain better jobs and career going forward, and became more successful. And this is a very popular study that demonstrates what management of emotions really mean. Negotiation, we all know what negotiation is, but here we're talking about people with high emotional intelligence can negotiate and reach the win-win kind of agreement by listening more to the counterpart and reaching that kind of resolution. Empathy, we all know what empathy means. Empathy is being putting yourself in the shoe of someone else and trying to sense the same feeling the other person is going through. And empathy is really gaining a lot of attention these days. 2 years ago, I gave a presentation to the Project Managers Institute here in Jordan, and we talked about empathy for the success of project management. And I know that a year ago, I was told that empathy has been introduced as one of the subjects for certification as for project managers. So that shows you how important empathy is. And we all can imagine how empathy is important for all professions. You cannot imagine a successful nurse who is not empathetic, or an architect or an engineer without empathy. So it's really important for the success. So these are, in general, the pillars that EQ or emotional intelligence is built on. So going to the subject of what employers want, I thought it might be interesting to ask reverse the question and for a minute and ask what you want. Don't you think this would be more interesting? So rather than waiting for the employers and checking with the employers what the employers really want, asking yourself what you want. And if you remember about the success formula, what you want, what and how, who you are and what you want. And you remember that I talked about my purpose at the beginning of the presentation. So I wanted to remind you here that the success formula is having the self-awareness, like what you want in life, like having a purpose, and who you are as a person. What are your characteristics and interests are, because that will help you making better decisions in life. So I thought to ask this question. Now going back to again the competency, the formula that we talked about before, which is skill plus attitude. To be a fit person or a competent person is skill plus attitude. Remember that formula that we talked about. Talking about skills here, now we're going to dig deeper in the skills. I want you, if you think about it, we cannot live without relationships, as we are not alone on this earth. So to have a successful relationship, we must engage in what? We must engage in conversation. We won't be able to have relationship. I cannot have relationship with AAA, EA, if I don't have a conversation with the people in the association, for instance. That conversation that I'm engaging in must have a core. What the core are the words that we use in the conversation. So therefore, the conversation will have certain skills. So to have a conversation, it has certain skills. So what are the skills required and important to have a successful conversation and therefore a successful relationship? I mentioned 4 here. One is listening, and I will be talking about them more in detail. Listening, curiosity, intuition, and powerful questions. So let's talk about listening. Listening, we all know what listening is, but the listening that I'm talking about here, there are different levels of listening. One level is listening to yourself, like going to a restaurant and opening a menu and asking yourself what you want to eat. All right, so that's talking to yourself. Or talking to yourself when somebody is talking to you and you sense that person or he's telling you that I'm tired, so you immediately draw into your expertise, deep into your expertise, and giving an answer, or giving based on your prior experience to try to help the person. And that's not the level of thinking, level of listening that I'm talking about, because that's not the effective listening in conversation. The second level of listening is when you listen to the whole person. When I talk whole person, is listening to the gesture of the person, the body language, trying to really sense the feeling of what the person is going through. And that's an effective listening, and more effective in building the conversation. So, to give you an example, so if somebody is talking to you, creating a conversation, so when you're looking at the whole person, you might seek clarification. When you say this, I'd like to clarify, or you articulate what the person is saying. So reframing what has been said in another way, so the other person will listen to what he has said in your words. And also it will include acknowledgement as well. Acknowledging certain values that you've seen or sensed from the person that you are talking to. So if the person is talking about being concerned about family, for instance, you would acknowledge the person being a family person, and that's a value that you acknowledge him or acknowledge her for. So that's focused listening that will include articulation, clarification, and acknowledgement. That's the listening that's important in conversation. Another skill is curiosity. Curiosity starts with what? Starts with having powerful questions. Being curious is different than being nosy. Being curious shows interest in the person. So, example, you ask a person, you are successful, and I am curious to learn how did you make it. That shows the person that you are curious to really know about his or her experience. So they will be volunteering to share with you their experience, rather than being nosy and say, okay, how did you make it in life, or how much you make it in income. That's not really a healthy conversation and a healthy or a good skill to have to build a good relationship. The third skill is intuition. And intuition is not prejudgment. Intuition, we are not used to trust our intuition or guts. Using intuition effectively requires you to not be attached to it. If somebody is, if you have an intuition about a person that you're talking to that is tired, okay, because he's yawning, for instance. Don't get attached that your senses is correct. The other person might tell you, no, I'm not, so just take it and go. But what would that do to the other person? Will have the other person dig deeper into what actually has been saying and thinking about that intuition that you have. So the impact of your intuition is so powerful on the other person, so it will make him or make her think. Asking questions. All what we talked about, all these skills that we talked about before, actually require us, like listening and curiosity and intuition, require a skill of asking questions. So therefore, there are no clever or stupid questions. However, there are powerful questions. What these questions do, they will send the person to dig deeper into themselves. And these questions are not binary questions in a way that they are not yes or no. They don't require just yes or no answers. The effective questions or powerful questions are the questions that like what, when, who, why, where, these type of questions that will allow the person to talk more and elaborate more in the conversation. So these are skills that we need. So the formula again, competency is a skill plus attitude. So we have to talk about attitude. Some of the attitudes that worth talking about here let me just go back one slide. Yeah, so attitude, because we wouldn't have a good conversation. Remember the metaphor that we said, that having a fit body requires muscle and discipline. So muscle is the skills or the skill, and the attitude is the discipline is the attitude. And some of the attitudes here that are very important are flexibility, patience, and resilience. And I will be talking about them in the next slide. Let's talk about flexibility. Flexibility, sometimes the situation we are changing. Example holding this webinar. We appreciate your flexibility to come in to do it online. Can you imagine now after things are opening up, you have to go back to office. So being flexible to work from online, to work from the office, because we easily get used to certain style and certain way of conducting business. So in the era of COVID, we worked from home. So at least here in Jordan, we started opening up, so we started going to work. But there are some people might resist the idea of going back to office because got used to be working from home, for instance. So being flexible is an attitude that is really important to have. Patience. Patience, self-management, and emotional management are the same. Remember the marshmallow study that I talked about at the beginning. Those kids were patient. Those who waited 5 minutes to take more marshmallow, and they were successful in life. So having patience is another important attitude, because what impatient means will generate negative emotions, and we all know emotions are energies. So actually we call them energy emotions. So if you are patient, probably will give you the positive feeling, and therefore it will give you that positive energy. Resilience. The best way to define this attitude is being able to bounce back on time of unknown uncertainty. There is or overcoming negative self-talk to yourself. Resilience, the best example also is like sponge. Sponge is like when you fold it, and when you unfold it, it goes back to its normal shape. And there is an interesting acronym that is used by the US military called VOCA, which is an acronym that stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, which is a combination of qualities that taken together characterize the nature of some difficult conditions and situations. So the term VOCA originated by the United States Army, describing conditions resulting from the COVID. And this VOCA situation is almost, we are in it right now. We were in it during the lockdown of COVID. Now we are in it during this situation, that crisis that we have between Europe and in Ukraine and Russia, for instance. So we are living in this kind of VOCA world. We have been living in this VOCA world, and therefore such attitudes are required going forward in our life. So in summary, we talk about there are hundreds and hundreds of soft skills. We talked about a few here. So we have discussed some of these skills that we mentioned here. And by combining these skills and attitudes, you will be a fit, competent person, employee, and human being. All such skills and attitudes are needed in the next decade and are related to emotional intelligence, which cannot be digitized like everything else. In the digital economy that we are living in, robots, self-driving cars, everything digitized. We live in a digital economy. However, emotional intelligence cannot be digitized, so that's something very important that to remember. We should all have time to pause. We paused during COVID in some countries where we had lockdown, for instance. So that was a time to reflect. I think this is it was healthy, important for us to, in our busy life, to really pause, slow down, and contemplate and reflect, and to see what you want to do. And I think that we are blessed with many universities now that offering online courses free, so to learn about emotional intelligence as it's becoming more and more accessible, and also so you can raise, because this session was more kind of awareness, it's not a training, because every one of these competencies or skills or attitude really require a session in itself. So here we raise your awareness, and I think it's there is a room for everybody to learn more. And I suggest also to hire a coach also to learn more about emotional intelligence and learn more about yourself. For me, this is it. Thank you very much. Khalid, the floor is back to you. If anybody has any question, I will be more than happy to address them. It took us 30 minutes, so I think we are on time.
Thank you very much, Jamal. This was very enlightening. We now open the Q&A session, and please use the hand raising to answer the question, to ask a question, and I'll acknowledge you based when you raise your hand, and Isa will give you the mic. This way we cut down on background noise. So while you're thinking or getting ready to raise your hands, let me start it with a question that I had on my mind. I noticed that after 2 years of working from home during COVID, it seems that getting back into the face-to-face or going to the office, I feel that some adjustments in attitude and listening and just being around people, from working in my pajama at home to going to the office and getting dressed up with a suit and tie. That's an adjustment. I was wondering if you, as an expert in this area, can give me some couple of tips.
Yeah, Khalid, I think this is important. This is a very normal kind of behavior that we all go through, because what happens is we get used to norm, and as we said that such habits generate certain energy for us. So can you imagine that we all wake up, if we wake up at the same time, doing the same routine in the morning, driving your car to work the same way that you go every time, going to the office, seeing the same people, doing the same work. So what happens is like your brain is used to do these things. So the energy is at that level. So it will tell you not to really do another thing. So it's like tomorrow I want to do different thing in the morning, for instance. Your brain will tell you, please don't, because I don't want to learn something new. I don't want to, try something different. So therefore, your energy will be at a certain level. So because of these emotions that you have, I'm comfortable, I'm in my comfort zone doing these things, and you will have certain energy. By changing and forcing yourself and making it a habit to change things bit by bit, what will happen is that your brain will start generating kind of new ways for you to and giving you new energy, therefore, to do what you wanted to do. So getting in the habit is doing things little by little is important, and will get you out of the norm that you are in my opinion.
I have a follow-up on that. I don't know if that is true or not, but I just want to throw it out there. I'm just thinking, because there is some studies, by the way, that if you keep doing the same thing, it will impact even how long you will live. Because, for example, if you drive every day, take this one highway to work, the same way, and if you don't change, 2 times a week or maybe a month, probably just your brain will stop thinking about creative ways of doing it.
Right.
So this will impact how long you live. That's something.
I don't know if it impacts the way that how long you live, but it's probably will impact how you live because it will definitely, as we say, it's like new energies will be generated, and therefore you feel that you are younger. Because, in my opinion, because you're getting you're learning new things by going through different roads. You will be learning new. You'll be more conscious, about the new. I have some people here as well joining me here. If you have any questions, guys.
I guess, Jamal, that's a very good presentation. We appreciate your time today. And actually, it's not necessarily exactly questions, but thoughts that basically were coming to me as I heard your presentation and coming from personal experience. I know that the 3 things that come to mind is sometimes some of us probably lost their job during the pandemic.
Recording stopped.
The job market and the adjustments that haven't happening. And in many cases, some of us, when we go back to work, we end up in roles or positions that
You are on mute, Sam, if you can unmute yourself.
Sam, you're on mute.
all that are important to have as you go back to the workforce in a role that's different from where you left. That's speaking from personal experience. And in the meantime, also, in the pandemic, is all its disadvantages. It gave us time to reflect and probably also use the time to learn new skills, whether these skills are emotional intelligence, skills that you need to improve your communication, and also skills like that you need for your work, probably something that you haven't done before, or software application that you can use, or sometimes even digital, becoming more digitally aware. Get used to using the Zoom meetings and the Teams and all this other stuff that probably 2 or 3 years ago you wouldn't have to use all the time, but now it's 90% of the meetings are done via video conference.
Yes.
And the last thing I want to add is increasing network. That's probably another skill that both of us will need. And AAA is thank you for doing this. By attending, by reach out to other members, you increase the network, and that can help you go back to the workforce.
Okay.
That's what I want to
Thank you very much, Sam. May I add, because
Lisa, do you see any hands?
Yeah, there is some hands. Wait, there's 3 hands. But let him answer first.
Khalid, do you mind just to comment on Sam's comment?
The way to raise your hands is there's 3 dots.
I don't think he hears you. Just to comment on Sam's, all what you said is 100% correct. I would add to it that, it would be unfortunate if somebody lost his or her job, and I'm sure that person would be under pressure probably to find another job very quickly, and therefore, trying to gaining all these skills. I would really add to what you said is also taking the time and reflect on what you want actually, what you want, rather than being responsive to what you think the market really needs. Trying to really think what you meant to do in this life, in terms of understanding more about your unique characteristics, unique skills, unique traits, and because these are like muscles that you can deploy and employ to attain what you want in life. So and that's success format I talked about. So for those, if they have the time and not being under pressure to take the time to pause and reflect on that, because God knows what actually could come out of this reflection. Maybe something that worth doing outside employment, God knows. So it's just an invitation for people to, in that situation, or not in that situation, to think about what they want.
I have to offer transparency here. It makes clarity to unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Can I just 1 second, please? Kevin has some live audience in the studio, and he said that they also have some questions. You want to ask the audience to ask their questions, Kevin?
Just give us a few minutes, because there are some people came in and some people walked out. So give us a few minutes. So there are any other people that are
Zahid, go ahead.
First, can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Good. First, can I thank you very much for taking the time again to share with us some of the knowledge, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I was paying attention, and I really, my actually, it's more like a comment, not a question. I'm very grateful that you shared the difference between, when you were talking about curiosity, passion, and curious in terms of a question. Because a lot of us here in the States need to learn that, especially when we talk about hard subjects like racism, like politics, like religion. And those things, in order for us to understand each other, we have to ask these questions and be curious about them. So your point about passion to be curious question is really right on point, and I thank you for sharing it with the group as an expert. So, and we just have to learn how to do it tactfully and with respect. That's my opinion. But if you want to add to that, by all means.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for highlighting that. Yes, I think it's not just in the States, I think everywhere. It's a really different dimension to really asking the question, because you could really ask the same question but in a different way, and you will get the attention of the person that you are talking to in a positive way. So it all depends on how you ask these questions, the art of asking questions. So yeah, curiosity is a very, very important skill to have always as a life skill, in my opinion. So thank you for...
and here I may, but we can't do this because it's a tough subject. It's it can't produce some kind of an argument or people fight over it, and I feel sometimes they don't know how to do the trial, so they avoid it completely, and it becomes in a pressure that it keeps it's not addressed. It has to be talked about with respect and how we all interact. So thank you again, and
Sure, but just to add one thing on that one. Remember here is just we raise conscious about important skills and important attitude. We just put some flashlight on these important items. But to drill deeper into each skill and each attitude, it requires a session in itself. So talking about curiosity and doing exercises and doing training on how to ask these powerful questions, to be curious, it's a very interesting subject, and maybe worth to really go into a deeper session for that in the future.
And then please unmute yourself before you ask a question.
Isa, I can see that people, first of all, I want to continue to moderate until the end of this session, sorry. But for a minute, my speaker was turned off and I wasn't sure what was going on. So, anyways, do you have anybody from the audience minutes.
Yes, I have engineer Fuad Abuddin here. He's with us. Maybe engineer Fuad, if you'd like to ask you a question, we go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Kamal Al-Masri, for providing us with this very important information. As a matter of fact, I was following it on the Zoom in my home and on the cars to here, but now I am present in the same. So while Kamal has provided information about the skills and the capabilities which are required by the employers for the employees to be more desired, I would like to ask him if there is a way to help the employees who are interested in strengthening their skills or capabilities. For instance, by providing information about certain institutes which provide such services, and I know some institutes which provide these services even free, being supported by the government here. So I have a feeling that the employees who are interested to work on themselves and strengthen their skills and capabilities so they can become more desired by the employers would like to know about this. If Kamal can give some information about if there are certain institutes or maybe you can provide it online or something.
Thank you very much, Engineer Fuad. When we presented here at the last slide, I mentioned that there are so many universities offering online courses. Started offering these online courses free of charge, not just here around the world during the COVID-19 lockdown. I happen to know some, but definitely we can research and see who are still offering those. And if you have any that we can always share. But I think we're lucky that there are many institutions offering these courses. If there are people who are interested, maybe we can share it with Khalid and the team from the association to share it with the members. And Engineer Fuad, if you have any that you have as well, please pass it on to us to share. Sure.
Thank you. We have time for one or two questions. Walid, please go ahead and ask your question, and we can have one more after that before we move to the next segment of the program.
We can ask another question.
Is Walid going to ask? Because there's another question here.
Okay, go ahead. When you get
also, maybe the employees would be interested in, because every employee who applies for any company is interested in working for a certain company or a certain factory or whatever. The first thing he would be expected to do is to have an interview with the management and with people who are decision makers on this issue. So, are any advices for the interview while he's doing the interview?
Very, very, very important question. We didn't emphasize a lot on it, but this is a very important point. The question here by Engineer Fuad is any suggestions for interviews for the employees during the interview. I thought that, in my opinion, one important recommendation is knowing the person knowing how to introduce him or herself. So it's like most of the time, this is one of the most difficult questions for most of us to be able to talk about ourselves. So if someone is asking me or asking anybody to introduce him or herself, probably struggle to really to talk about our experience or talk about personal life. So what I find it interesting and very important is to be able to present self in a correct way. Because what I'm interested as an employer to know about the person or interviewee, learning about his or her DNA. what is this person, how is this person going to be fit within my organization? How is he going or she is going to be meeting the culture or blending in my culture of the organization? So I would be curious to know more about the values that person has, because I, as a company, as an employer, I have my set of values. So if I'm hiring somebody, I'd like to really make sure that we have shared values. If I'm an integral, I'd like the person to be integral as well. If I have honesty, I'd like to. So these are in addition to the core skills, because core skills definitely can be developed. These values, most of the employees, I've seen that they are not able to really know. They don't know about themselves to be able to present it. Yeah. So my recommendation is again to really look inward and trying to really understanding more and more about self. And when asked to present, talk about self, to talk about these characteristics that makes you different and a unique person, and how would that make you fit within that organization. In addition, also to knowing what you want in life, and how your purpose in life is aligned with that job that you are seeking. In my opinion, as an employer, I would be very interested to hear these things from your employee. Do you? Okay.
We have from the audience here one last comment before we close this session and start our next session. Sam, you want to go ahead? Sam is giving us the green light to skip it. Anybody else from the audience have one last thing to share, question, comment? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much again, Janab, and this concludes our first part of the program, which is the presentation. Our second part of the program today is a discussion by the Executive Committee on the challenges and opportunities for the Arab American Association of Engineers and Architects post-COVID. And for that, we turn it over to our acting president, Engineer Isa Haj Hamad. Isa, over to you.
Should I leave or?
You can stay if you like.
Okay.
I'd love to have you continue.
If my session is over, if my session is over, thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed meeting everybody, and I look forward to connect with you in the future. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.